I apologize for the lighting. Florida's summer sun is strong right now, so if anything is wonky, I'm sorry. And also, don't pay any attention to this little guy. I have a skin tag that is trying to not so gracefully exit my face. But I wanted to address this comment, and I have it up on my laptop so I can read it better. And I just wanted to address it. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to address it out of order. And I don't know how long this is going to be, so grab a drink and speed this up. And let's just go through some of the talking points here. It says, do your children have any friends that they have play dates with at your house or theirs? I know they go to the library and see kids there, but not the same as having a friend. Children need friends to call their own, and when homeschooling, it doesn't lend to friendships. I'm going to start at the end with children need friends to call their own, and when homeschooling, it doesn't lend to friendships. That is a sweeping generalization that is cliched and dangerous. It lends itself to a rhetoric that is not in any way, shape, or form accurate. I put it akin to when we say people are constantly trying to abuse government assistance systems when actually the percentage is really low. It's just that we talk about the bad instead of the overwhelming positivity. Now, to say that homeschool doesn't lend to friendships, I want to see the statistics of that. I want to see the facts that can be given for that statement that isn't just the cliched homeschool memes we see of awkward kids who don't know how to talk to people. Now, when I give my personal experiences, my kids' experiences, am I saying our experiences are the only ones and represent all homeschoolers' experiences? Absolutely not. Just as you can say that the kids in public school or private school come away with long-lasting friendships because they're socializing, that is a generalized statement that is not accurate. But I do think it's helpful to hear experiences so that it could be understood that nope, this is not a one-size-fits-all statement. So I went to public school. Yes, I'm a 1900s baby. I went to public school. I was from kindergarten to 6th grade in an elementary school and then a middle school. And then I was homeschooled from 7th grade to 12th grade. Now, while I was in public school, if I made it out of a school year with one friend, that was a lot. I did not have many friends. But what was seen was that a lot of friendships were made already in a neighborhood that then carried over into the classroom. Very few friendships were formed in the classroom setting. They were made around the neighborhood, they were made in a church, and I did not live in a neighborhood with any other children, and I didn't attend religious services. So I was at a disadvantage simply because I didn't know anybody in the classroom like a lot of these kids already knew one another. And I was bullied. And it just was not an easy situation for me. So at least one child in every grade level I could call a friend, whether it carried into the next grade level depended upon if we were in the same class the next year. And by the time I exited public school in 6th grade, I had 2 friends to my name that I carried outside the school setting. And it lent itself into not long-lasting friendships. I can still call one a friend and the other I lost touch with. Whereas when I was homeschooled, that's when I made my most friendships. And I was not socializing every day with them. I was not in a socialized situation every single day, but I came away with more friends to the point where they were in my wedding party years later. And while some have moved and we've all have families and kids, jobs, careers, we still come together when visiting. We still check up on each other with texts and the marvelous technology of Facebook Messenger and emails and FaceTime and things like that, we are still friends. Are we as close as we were? No, our friendships have evolved. But I would say homeschooling gave me more friendships than public school did. And it gave me a confidence that public school did not give me, that I could carry over into my college years, that helped me make friends and socialize better. Whereas I don't think I would have had that confidence had I continued in the public school system for my middle, junior, high school grades. Is my experience the only one to go by? Absolutely not. But I have a mixture of people I know who were homeschooled who had very, socialized homeschool experiences, and others who didn't. It's just a mixture. But to say no friendships can come out of homeschooling is accurate. That is a fact. That is not accurate. Now, as for my kids, I don't come on here and talk about their friends and their socializing opportunities and where they go and what they're doing. I just leave it to the library. I think that's pretty generic enough. But to say, hey, today they saw so-and-so and went to so-and-so, I don't do that. I try not to post pictures where their friends are in those pictures. So for safety reasons, I don't talk a lot about that. But that doesn't mean they don't have friends. Unfortunately, in these 3 to 10 minute videos, depending on my blabbing mood, you're only seeing a nugget of life. And while I do talk about my kids and I do put my kids out there, I don't want to put the people that they know out there. Now, this is something that is unique, I think, to my area, to the people in my social circle. And I am speaking of both homeschool families and public school families, but nobody has play dates at the house anymore. And I don't know why. And I don't know if that's pretty widely done or not. For instance, for 3 years, my kids had best friends who lived right next door. Unfortunately, due to a family dynamic, they moved. But for 3 years, we never went into each other's houses because their family didn't allow their kids to go into houses of other families unless it was a family member. So they played outside, front or backyards of each other's houses, but we never went into their house. And it wasn't a predetermined play date. It was one of those knock on the door situations. Can so-and-so come out and play? And unfortunately, they moved, and that dynamic changed to only when they come and visit. But aside from that situation, the social circle of my kids and their friends, they don't do play dates in the house. It's meeting up places. So oftentimes we're meeting up at the library because it's free and air conditioned, and birthday parties. And a couple of their friends have a phone, so they'll text using my phone. Or they go online at the same time to play a game, meet somewhere. So they do. I just don't talk about it a lot because I want to respect privacy and safety. And I know I can just generically say, hey, my kids saw some friends today, and that might quell suspicions of, hey, I don't think her kids have friends. I just don't. But yeah, ironically, a lot of the friends that they have were made from library events. They either saw each other a lot at the library and hit it off, and we exchanged contact information. It's just, so you can't knock the library because that's where they found people. We are not a part of a lot of homeschool groups. A lot of them cost a lot of money, and a lot of them have requirements that we don't meet in terms of some health things. I'll just leave it at that. I don't need any controversy on here. But yeah, so they do have friends. And they do go to the library for a lot of events. It is free. But they've also met almost all of their friends from the library. So that's pretty neat. But they're not in a socialization aspect every day of the week. But that doesn't mean they're not around other kids. And that doesn't mean that they don't have friends. I read this article a couple weeks ago that was in response to the increase in popularity of homeschool and homeschool co-ops, and how the question is, how are these kids going to stay socialized? How are they going to make friends? And this gentleman did like a study at a school, and again, this is just one study, one school, doesn't represent everything out there, but is still interesting. And it was these kids, I think he was in like a 3rd grade scenario. I don't quote me on a grade level, but it was, how much actual socialization interaction do these kids get? Because just because they're in a room full of other kids doesn't mean they're getting meaningful interaction that can lead to friendships outside of the classroom. So after documenting a year, and I guess he did interviews and observations and all that, he concluded that in one school day, you know, whether school starts at 8 to 3, whatever the dynamic, 30 minutes of broken socialization interaction was done in a day, because of the lack of opportunity to actually socialize, because sometimes there was silent lunch, there was no PE, there was no recess, classwork, little group time to interact outside of lessons. You know, a lot of high schools don't have lockers anymore to socialize by, so meaningful interactions in school are not as prevalent as people think, or is portrayed on TV, or how we might think it was back in the 90s and beyond. So to assume that the public school, private school, charter school setting is just overflowing with opportunity isn't also accurate. Just because you're in a room full of other kids doesn't mean you're getting a meaningful interaction out of the experience. I'm not knocking anything here. I'm just presenting some realization, I guess. But I always go back to the first thing people think of with homeschooling is, but what about the socialization? And that happened even when I was being homeschooled in the 1900s. And it always struck me, nobody ever asked, but what about the quality of her education? It was always, what about socialization? I think we need to change our knee-jerk reaction question. So if we hear, I homeschool my child, or if somebody goes, I am homeschooled, maybe instead of going, but do you have friends? Do they have friends? Are they socializing? Going, hey, what does their education look like? I think that is an important question, if not more important, although maybe some people would disagree with me. Let's just say it's just as important. Because we don't question the socialization in a public school setting, and maybe we should. I don't know. But anyway, my kids are okay. And I turned out okay. That doesn't mean everybody does. But don't assume that everybody won't turn out okay. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking through this whole video if you did. And I'll talk to you later.